is mention of a story in the Bible about Mary and Martha. I think most of you would be familiar with it, but I'll just do a quick summary of that. So, there are two sisters, disciples of Jesus Christ, Martha and Mary, and Jesus visits their home. And Mary just sits by his feet, totally absorbed in the divine love and wisdom that he's showering on them, and she's completely absorbed in his consciousness. Whereas Martha, she is busy with the house because there's so many guests and she wants to help serve all of them. And finally, I think, like all of us, she gets frustrated that she's just sitting here and I'm doing all the work. So she goes to Christ and she says, "You're just, allowing her to sit like this. Please tell her to help me. There's so many guests, so much work needs to be done. She's just sitting lazily like that." So, what does Christ do? As the reading says, he rebukes her. He says, "Martha, you are so filled with care." Here it means too much of worry and anxiety she is filled with. And that is why you are not going to get what Mary is getting. Right? What she is getting can never be taken away from her, because what she is getting within her is a permanent thing. And what you are doing right now with so much of agitation and restlessness is just something working in the world which is temporary. Now, this is something which is controversial, I think. Should we be working? Should we be sitting? If we were, I can imagine in India, if this happened, all the guests would be whispering, "My God, she's such a besharam. She's letting her sister do all the work and she's just, relaxing there." So, what is the right thing? Yet Christ rebukes her. Why is that? Because if you read that story, you would see that Mary was completely absorbed in her guru's consciousness, in her master, Christ's consciousness. She is completely filled with his love. There is one focused, undivided devotion and attention. At that time, there is no thought. There is nothing to do. World doesn't in fact exist anymore. So what was she going to do? When we read about these saints, like Tukaram, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Mirabai, isn't it inspiring to read about them? They were constantly in this uplifted energy of God, right? In the chanting God's name, absorbed in God, right? And when we hear about these people, what did they really do in the world? They did not need anything from the world. Hence, they did not have any duty in the world because they were totally independent from the world. They had no cares. If they did work, it was for family or for the welfare of people like us. So when we are sitting in the ashram or when we are at home and we are talking to Guru Bhais and Bhens, then what happens? We all want that state, right? That absorption. Yeah, this is what our path promises us. God communion all the time, and we are blissful in peace and joy. The world doesn't affect us anymore. But does it really happen? Yes, to a certain extent. Master has given us such amazing techniques, sadhanas, meditation practices. We do have that God inner communion, feel the presence of God a lot of times. But sometimes what happens in meditation, the world just rushes in the form of thoughts, agitations, restlessness. Aaj aisa hua, usne ye kiya, anger, sometimes resentment, regrets. All of this comes into our meditation sometimes. And even if it doesn't, then as soon as we go into the world rushes back into the mind to take the place of our blissful meditation. Right? So we are, as of now, not really prepared to overlook our duties. Till we have this need to interact with the world, till we have this need to live in this world and take from the world, we cannot overlook our duties. Sometimes we have that tendency, ab main spiritual sadhana kar rahi hu, ab I can, relax and take it easy. I don't have to do so much in the world. But no, spiritual laziness starts to creep in. So Yogananji says, constantly work. Everybody around him, he would just put to work. He said, just work, work, work. And that is where he said, be actively calm and calmly active all the time, but in God. So do the right action is what he advised. And what's that right action? Seva, Nishkam Karm, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. And taking that consciousness, the calmness of your meditation practices, of your any spiritual practice that you do, into the world, taking God into the world with you is right action. Why? Because when you're not attached to those fruits of your action, you do Nishkam Karm, you take God and recognize Him as the doer, then it starts to dissolve further action. It starts to dissolve your karma, your desires, which create more action in the future. Right? So this is very important, right action. In the Gita again, Krishnji says that who is a true sannyasi? He mentions in the shlok, sannyasi is not the one who gives up fire. It was a symbolism that sannyasis would give up fire to show we are leaving the grihastha ashram, householder. This thing, he said, that is not a sannyasi. But sannyasi is one who leaves that attachment to the grihastha, attachment to the household. Right? That is a true sannyasi. He also goes on to say that there are two paths mainly in this world for spiritual seekers. One is a path of wisdom, and one is the path of action, of karma yoga. And who does he say is capable of following this path of wisdom? The person, he says, who has, Swamiji says, in fact, Yogananji had mentioned that it is only that person who has got samadhi. That person can be eligible for the path of wisdom, because only he can truly leave the world, perhaps if he wants to, and be 24/7, every moment absorbed in the consciousness of God, absorbed in contemplation of God, and share it with others. But for us, a lot of us, most of us, the path of action is what Krishna says is most important. Because this is what is going to help us to purify ourselves and help us to make these karmas more and more dissolved, so that we can go deeper and deeper into inner communion. In fact, karma, right action, leads to inner communion. So this title is a little bit of a misnomer. Action, seva versus communion. Seva leads us to inner communion, prepares us for inner communion. And you see all these saints in the altar. These saints were following the path of wisdom. They did not need any kind of duties anymore. They were oblivious of the world. They did not need to act. However, they came back to act in the world so that they could work for the welfare of all of us and serve as an example. Krishna again says that I am working here even though I have absolutely nothing to do in this world, but I want to set an example to everyone. He didn't say I will do bhajan, kirtan, meditation and set an example. He said I will work and set an example. And throughout the Gita, he exhorts us to take action all the time. Because there is that tendency among us who we are not able to understand when is it that we should act, when is it we should go into our caves, into spiritual practice. He says that action can never be left. And right at the beginning of the Gita, what happens? At the start of the Gita, Arjun just leaves his Gandiv, his bow, and he says, I cannot fight. Why? Because these are my family relatives. It's like fighting, killing people, my own family, for wealth, and I cannot do this. And what does Krishna say? What does Arjun say? He says, I'd rather become a sannyasi, leave this world, take the begging bowl, and I will take sannyas. And what does Krishna say? No, go and kill them. Now, this doesn't sound very nice, right? Even for us, go and kill my relative for wealth? No, it sounds quite abhorrent. But what did it really mean? The caste system is much misunderstood now. But the reason Yogananji said the caste was that it told us our tendencies and the right action for our tendencies. So Brahman was somebody who was absorbed constantly in Brahman, in God, was contemplative. And Kshatriya, the person who was who was not born but who had that tendencies of a Kshatriya, was a person who could not stand the suffering of people. He wanted to do something good for the people, and he was ready for the right cause to even sacrifice his life and do battle. Now, Arjun had the tendencies of a true Kshatriya. If he had left everything and gone to sannyas, the world, he may have renounced the world, but world would not have renounced him. Right? So he needed the right action for his tendencies to start to dissolve his own karmas and his own tendencies and inclinations. So he needed a righteous war. This war was fought because the Kauravas were evil, not for personal wealth and fortune. So Krishna tells him this is a higher battle between good and evil, and you're just an instrument. And when we act as an instrument and we do seva, then that ennobles us, makes us grow. And if we are on the spiritual path, then it helps us to clear us of our tendencies, of our inclinations, so we can also go deeper into inner communion. You can see all around you the example of Ananda and Swami Kriyananda. Why did he make Ananda? He made it for inner communion, right? He made it to spread the teachings of his guru. But what is happening all around in Ananda? Kriyanand was told that your life is about intense activity and meditation. Right? He just acted. He was constantly busy in activity, setting up Ananda, which was a spiritual center, which we think is a place of relaxation. And if you see all the people of Ananda, in Ananda village, in all the centers, everyone is busy in action. And who does this action help? Of course, everybody, all of us who come there, definitely. But all of those people also who are doing seva, and they are dissolving their future karmas and future tendencies through right action by taking God along with them in their action. Thank you.
So you heard the Mary and Martha story. Now I would like you to imagine yourself being in Martha's place. How God comes to you is he comes like a thief unannounced, is what Christ said. So imagine you're sitting at home, relaxing, you hear a knock on the door, you open and you see Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashaya, Yukteswarji, Paramahansa Yogananda, and other his disciples of angelic contendants standing there, coming into your home. What would you do? You're totally unprepared. Won't you freak out? Like, Guru, what can I give you? Of course, we will order something from Zomato. Martha even didn't have that choice. But even Swami Sri Yukteswar, when he met Mahavatar Babaji under a banyan tree in Raighat, he also got excited, and Mahavatar Babaji said that you extinguished me from the ether. Your excitement did it. So it is understandable that Martha was very, very busy taking care of all the things which needed to be done. Now Martha wasn't doing what she wanted to do, she was doing what was needed, very much needed. And yet Christ rebuked her not for doing what she was doing, but for her restlessness, for her too much care of not thinking about God when she was serving. Because that is the key difference. We need to think of God like, I will work for thee, Lord, and when I work for thee, I will always remember thee, holding you in my mind. So that is the attitude that affirmation said, and that's what Christ recommends. That's what makes a normal work into a seva. And should we serve at all is a question. Can't we all meditate morning to evening? We can. If we can, then it is recommended to meditate, but unfortunately, our mind isn't trained, our mind isn't there yet. And as Swami Sri Yukteswar ji said, as long as you breathe the free air of this earth, you are obligated to render grateful service. So if that question ever comes to your mind, just check if you're breathing. And if you're breathing, yes, we need to serve. We need to, serve and help all our fellow men and fellow humans in this world. And what kind of work we need to do is a question which we all have, but then that would be a discussion for another day. Coming Saturday, we have a Dharma retreat. If you want to know what is your real Dharma in life, you are welcome to come there. But today, we are going to talk more about with what attitude we should do our work. And Swami Kriyananda shares two very nice stories in the book, his autobiography, The New Path. So, Meera Mata, she shared the story with Swamiji. So Swami Kriyananda and they were having conversation, and she said that Paramahansa Yogananda, their master or guru, gave her a lesson about how to serve. So he met her one day and said, "You are always working. You have done enough work for this lifetime and for the next incarnation also probably. Please do less." And she said, "Yes, I will do less. I will do fewer chores. I will reduce my workload." And the next day, Paramahansa Yogananda calls her and gives more work to her. And again, the next day, he says, "You are working too hard. Relax, do less." And the next day, he calls her and gives more work. So this comedy went on for a while, and she was not able to understand why he is doing it. How can he do less when he is giving more to do? It was beyond her understanding. But when she reflected upon that, she understood that when the next time Paramahansa Yogananda told her, you're doing a lot of work, she said, "Master, why shouldn't we replace the word work into Seva?" And then Paramahansa Yogananda appreciated her for, being in tune with him and receiving the message that don't look at it as work, look at it as Seva. And there's another story which follows in the same chapter, Work versus Meditation, where Meera Mata goes to the kitchen where Paramahansa Yogananda is cooking, and she was just there. So, lack of better things to do, she started cleaning up after Paramahansa Yogananda. So now, those who have read these books, you would know that there were two different kitchens in Mount Washington where they lived. Paramahansa Yogananda had his own private kitchen because he liked Indian curries, and so it was a different cooking. He had his own menu, and so when he was making his food, whatever bartan which was done using, so Meera goes and cleans that up, wipes the countertop as and when the work is going on. So Paramahansa Yogananda suddenly started using more pots and pans and spilling more food. And Meera Mata says in that, "I've never seen such a sloppy cooking." More. She started cleaning more, he started using more. And then she said, "Okay, I'm going to stop. And I will clean up after he finishes the cooking." The moment she thought, he stopped using more pots and pans and he started cooking very cleanly and slow, in a very centered way, just to convey to her that do not be restless and in a hurry to do the work. Do your work, even if it is cleaning a plate, cleaning a pot. Do it with God consciousness. Hold him in your thought. And I more often than not, we let ourselves come in the way of seva. So, what we do is we think that we are doing so much, we are giving our Guru or God a lot, and we need something in return. It is natural for a human mind to think, nothing wrong in that, but it is just that that's not how seva works. We need to understand that what we give is not even ours. So I will read a couple of lines from this book, New Path, where Swamiji writes that, "O blind ones, can't you see that self transformation is a total process? That what the Master gives us spiritually must be perceived on every level of our being?" And some people think that, of course, Paramahansa, a Guru, has a lot to give me, but I too have something to offer to him. I know Master has the greatest thing of all to give me, but I have something worthwhile to give him too. I am a good organizer. O foolish devotee, don't you see that man has nothing to express that he can truly call his own? His ideas, his opinions, his so called inspirations, all these reflect only currents of consciousness available equally to everybody. The fact is, we don't have anything which they want, they have everything. They don't even, we want things in creation, we have things, we possess things within the creation, they are one with the Creator Himself. They don't want anything from us. Then what is the point of seva, you might ask? Swami Kriyananda says that the purpose of spiritual path and seva is not to do things for God, but to do the most important thing of all for ourselves. It is for our own good we do it, to purify our hearts. Through seva and through meditation, to purify our hearts. And one small, lesson which I learned early in spiritual path, when I was in art and science of Raja Yoga, and that time Ananda Delhi Center, we did not have a Delhi Center, and Dayan Keshwa used to live in Gurgaon, and they drive down to Delhi Kannada School, where they give the classes. So my job was to set up the book table, and before 9 a.m. One day I got late. I slept really late, and then I got up late, and I was running towards Delhi Kannada School, and on the way I was thinking, oh my God, by now the book table should have been set up. What will happen? I haven't reached there. The boxes will be laying, it would have been a mess. What would I do? Nobody would be there to do this. But when I went there, when I reached, the book table was set up in a much better way than I did it every week. There was autobiography arranged in very nice, and there were flower petals around the book. There was incense stick lit around near the book table. It was feeling much better. And I saw two devotees walking out, and I asked, who did this? And they said, you know what, suddenly we woke up too early and then we wanted to come. Our duty was to do the altar setup. We did it, and we had like 20 minutes in our hand. And so we thought, okay, we will do the book table too. And that's the first lesson I learned, that, Hari, I am giving you a chance to serve. Okay? You have nothing to give me. Don't feel too important. So that was the first. It's usual and it's normal to think of it that we are serving. But the more and more we are conscious that God is the doer, God does this through us, and then the work becomes a seva. And when we do anything with the remembrance of God, when we work holding the thought of holding God's consciousness in us, and when we work for God, work becomes meditation. So that's why Paramahansa Yogananda said, be calmly active. Hold calmness. When we say God, we need not necessarily think about our favorite God in the form of our favorite God, but you can always be in tune with the aspects of God. Those who have done the basic meditation course know that there are 8 aspects of God. Feel calmness when you are serving, then you are acting with the consciousness of God. Feel joy, feel peace. Peace and joy and calmness, they are also godliness, they are also God. So hold on to that peace and serve, and every work will be a seva and every work will be a meditation.